What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the channel. Yes, today, Israel Hamas ceasefire deal begins with release of Israel hostage Palestinian prisoners. So we got here, guys. Today, 3 Israel hostages were released Sunday as part of a long-awaited ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. They are the first of 33 that Hamas is expected to free during the first phase of the deal. Early Monday, more than 7 hours later, Israel released 90 Palestinian prisoners and detainees. Accompanied by the Red Cross, the Israeli hostages were transferred to the Israeli Defense Force and Israeli Security Authority just after 5:30 p.m. local time and crossed the border into Israeli territory shortly after that. Those agencies said that in a joint announcement, both IDF Special Forces and ISA forces accompanied the freed hostages out of Gaza. The commanders and soldiers of Israel Defense Forces salute and embrace the released hostages as they make their way home to the state of Israel. The agency said the hostages released were confirmed as 24-year-old Rami Ghanem, 31-year-old Doron Steinbrecher, and 28-year-old Emily Damari. It's like, wow, that's great that these three have been released. That is awesome. Israel authorities said that the freed hostages underwent initial medical evaluations at a reception point in southern Israel. Once they returned after those checks, they boarded a military helicopter set to take them to other hospitals. A large bus carrying dozens of Palestinian detainees exited the gates of Israel off a prison just outside of the West Bank city of Ramallah. Ramallah. Man, these things are. Whew. Israel's military, which accompanies the West Bank, warned Palestinians against public celebration, but the crowds thronged the buses after they left the prison. Some people climbing on top, waving flags, including those of Hamas. There were fireworks and whistles and shouts of "God is great." Those released were hoisted onto other shoulders and embraced. That is amazing, amazing news there. So glad that's happened. I mean, couldn't imagine uh, these families that haven't seen their family and have been, prisoners. That's just something that I don't know. I don't think that most people can really think of. But that's crazy. We're gonna look at some Fox News clips real quick and see what else they have to add to this.
Hamas releasing the first 3 Israeli hostages yesterday after the ceasefire deal went into effect. Rami Ghanem, Emily Damari, and Doron Steinbrecher all handed over to Israeli Defense Forces after 471 days in captivity.
Wow.
30 more hostages are expected to be freed over the next 6 weeks,
nice.
Including 2 of the 3 remaining Americans, in exchange for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. 4 more hostages should be released next weekend. President Trump telling NBC News that his administration will make sure the ceasefire holds by using, quote, good government. He also warned if they don't respect us and the deal doesn't hold, then, quote, all hell will break out.
That's right.
The Heritage Foundation Vice President of National Security and Foreign Policy, Deputy National Security Advisor under President Trump, and author of The Battle for the Jewish State, How Israel and America Can Win, Victoria Coates. Victoria, so many questions for you, but I think, this really shows that Israel, I think that Netanyahu, and this has been talked about already, this isn't a great deal. It's tough to see Hamas be able to replenish their ranks with all of these prisoners, but you had 3 young girls come home to their mothers yesterday.
That's a very plus, good plus.
No, Cheryl, good to be with you. I think it has to be a day to celebrate to get these 3 innocents out of Gaza after 470 days. I mean, it's just unspeakable what they've been through. You're correct. It's a tough deal to accept because of the Hamas criminals who are going to be released starting next weekend. But at the same time, as I said, we need to celebrate. And the whole reason this is happening is Israel has confidence in President Trump that if this deal does go south, as he just said in that NBC interview, he's going to have Israel's back. And the United States will stand with Israel doing what it needs to do to defeat Hamas. So
unlike our previous administration. This president means businesses are going to get something done with this. This is amazing. This is great news.
I think that's what's changed here.
You know, Victoria, it's interesting because if you look at the breakdown of how these phases are going to go, of course, the concern is that Hamas could renege. They could back out of the deal. Is that a risk in your opinion?
Absolutely.
Oh, of course, it always is. I mean, they were 3 hours late on the deal over the weekend, so they're not a good faith actor. They're not, negotiating normally the way we would think of. I mean, those scenes of the girls coming out yesterday, being taunted and surrounded by armed fighters. They are not in any way interested in peace. They're not interested in a negotiated settlement. So all of these sudden calls that the Palestinians should be given a state as a reward for doing this. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. But at the same time, Israel's going to do what it can to get the remaining hostages out.
That's
there are
right.
some 90 of them that are in Hamas's control. But important to remember, Cheryl, there are some more hostages that are not in Hamas's control. They're in the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, PIJ's control, for example. So we can get, even if this deal comes to fruition, we may not be at the end of the road.
Right. Well, for the first time in U.S. history, Victoria, foreign leaders are going to attend an American presidential inauguration. No heads of state have previously made an official visit to the U.S. for any such event like this. He extended an invite, by the way, to Xi Jinping, who declined, but China's vice president is going to be in attendance today. Argentine President Javier Milei and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni also reportedly are attending. I want to get your reaction to this shift in the traditions of Inauguration Day.
Well, it was interesting because Han Zhen, the vice premier of China, was on my train yesterday down from New York, so that was somewhat unexpected. But it shows you what President Trump wants to do. He wants to have good relations with leaders around the world. It's one of his kind of trademark methods of diplomacy.
Well, it's important that we have good relationships with other leaders around the world, so that he can work with these people and get things done and them not be against us. They knew the whole thing with Biden is they just ran all over Biden. Biden couldn't do nothing. Biden wouldn't do nothing. They're afraid of Trump.
Creates these personal relationships. He works them, keeps lines of communication open. And so on the one hand, he's got the invitation out to Chairman Xi. As we just said, the vice premier is going to be at the inauguration today. But he's also threatening very, very high tariffs on China, which could be crippling to them economically. So there's kind of a good cop, bad cop going on here. I think it's great to use the inauguration this way. It's a wonderful spectacle of America because of the weather. It's all going to be inside. But it shows our peaceful transition of power. I can think of no more instructive thing for the Chinese to witness than the actual inauguration of the President of the United States.
Interesting. Well, let's stay with this because President-elect Trump telling now his advisors he wants to travel to China in his first 100 days in office. That's according to a report in the Wall Street Journal. Trump and Xi also spoke by phone Friday. They discussed trade, fentanyl, TikTok, and other issues. I want to get your thoughts on that, in particular, the timing with regards to TikTok and the Supreme Court upholding the ban on Friday, and then Donald Trump reinstating the app yesterday, at least giving them permission to come back.
Now, I mean, I'm all for open lines of communication with China. It prevents there being accidents or miscommunications that could potentially lead to conflict. So I think that's good. I mean, if the president wants to make that his first trip this year, that also, is absolutely his right to do that. I think with TikTok, it'll be interesting because you do have a range of views in Congress, for example, which of course passed this law banning TikTok. At the Heritage Foundation, we've done a lot of work on what is so pernicious about this algorithm that becomes almost addictive, particularly for young people, the kind of data that's being harvested, the fact that you've got members of the Chinese Communist Party on the board of TikTok.
I think it's weird that they talk about the algorithm that becomes addictive on TikTok. Like I said, I'm not a TikTok user. Never had a TikTok account. Don't really plan on having a TikTok account, but is it any more addictive, really, than Facebook, YouTube, somebody that goes on Instagram all the time? I mean, what's the deal with TikTok? I mean, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. I don't understand why they're talking about things that are so addictive. I mean, I've not seen anything on there from the stuff that I have seen that people, share TikTok things across Facebook sometimes, and I don't have that much interest in it. So I just don't understand and get this that they think such things is so addictive.
TikTok, all of this is highly problematic and unusual. I mean, this is not a normal company. But I think, President Trump also knows that a lot of Americans like TikTok. They make money on TikTok. So trying to find some kind of middle ground here, seems logical. But we'll have to see what happens with the Congress.
Yeah, well, of course, the question, does that algorithm that you just mentioned, is it really just a vehicle for the CCP to collect the data, the private data of Americans in particular?
No, we're going to look into some of this.
Victoria Coates, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe. And guys, we'll see you on the next one.